Well, just in case you were curious, a lot happened over the past weekend, and there might be a little bit to come up later on down the line. We're going to talk about everything. We're going to talk about Subban. We're going to talk about what Vancouver is doing being Trailblazers. And is the playoff race determined in the East? We'll find out.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Locked On NHL. Tyler Kuehl, the insider of the insiders, joined as always by the host of the Locked On Leafs podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike DiStefano. Mike, how you doing, man?
I am doing glorious today. I am doing fantastic. How are you?
I tell you, this past weekend, man, was something. And, for those that don't know, we're recording this late Monday night, or not late Monday night, but Monday night. So it's been less than 24 hours removed from what might be described as the craziest NFL playoff game I think I've ever seen. And and that is beyond the fact of Tom Brady coming back from 28-3. Mike, how much money did you lose on the Chiefs and Bills last night?
Why you got to ask me that question, Tyler? I lost a little bit of money on it. I had a couple of parlays baked into it as well.
Did you have 25 points scored in the last 2 minutes?
I did not have a parlay on the over in the final 2 minutes. No, I wish I did have the over on that one, but I had the Bills winning that game, and they clearly did not. Much like the Toronto Maple Leafs couldn't hold on to a lead in the final seconds of a game.
Oh, my gosh.
13 seconds left, and they can't hold Patrick Mahomes and company. And they make it, 45 yards down the field, kick a game-tying field goal to bring it to overtime. They win the coin toss, and they win the game. And, that was quite the thing. And actually, I know we didn't plan on talking about this, but I was having this discussion earlier today, and everybody's talking about the overtime rules and how in football, the fact that Josh Allen didn't get to touch the ball is a travesty, because it would have been awesome if they would have went college rules and just let those two just battle it out, right? Until, last man wins. And it got me thinking, and I'm curious, if there was one rule in hockey that you could change, and there's something that you feel passionately about that this would improve the game, what would it be, Tyler? I know I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but is there something that you've thought about this at all, or is there something that maybe you've had discussions in previously? What would that be?
Well, there's two that automatically come to mind because I've had these all the time. One is a former goaltender of the trapezoid. Okay. I think it's at this point, I understand the reason behind it. Marty Brodeur was getting way too many assists during the season, all-time leader in goalie goals. I understand the reasoning behind it, but let the goalies play a little bit. I think then again, I understand you don't want goalies venturing out because you have to worry about the goalie interferences. But then again, if you want to add a line, here's a good one, Mike. Make a bigger, the broom ball lines you see at summer rinks up there, the ones that go across the tops of the circles. I think if a goaltender goes outside that and what have you to come out and play the puck, or make another line if you want to, that they're fair game,
or just keep the trapezoid in there. And if you're in behind your net within the trapezoid, then you're somewhat protected. But if you want to venture outside of the trapezoid, then you're fair game. What about a little bit of a hybrid type of rule? If you want to be Marty Turco, go dig the puck from in the corner, then I think you should be fair game. But if you're just going in behind the net to stop it, different situation, I think.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you, because even though I'm a goaltender and a card-carrying member of the goaltender union, I know some people don't like to hear that the goaltender should be allowed to get hit. But if you come that far out, you should be a normal player, right? I mean, you want to be the third defenseman, you may have to get treated like a defenseman. The second one, though, Mike, that I'm severely passionate about, and I understand it's a reason why, because we want to have, wins. We want to have every game determined by a victor. You know what? Get rid of the shootout. I'm sick of the skills competition determining hockey games. I think it's dumb. I understand you want winners, but if a team in a 3-on-3 National Hockey League, 3-on-3 pro hockey, if you can't score after 5 minutes with that much open ice, you don't maybe deserve to win. Maybe that's just me, Mike.
Yeah, no, I agree. One of the rules that I like that I've talked about a little bit, though, is if you score on a power play, you still get the full power play. Like, it's a 2-minute penalty. You took the penalty. You got to serve it. That's like in rugby, right? If you take that penalty and you're sitting in the sin bin for 10 minutes, no matter how they could score, 3 tries on you in that time span, that's your penalty. If you get a red card in soccer, if you allow 1 goal, it's not like Buddy comes back out onto the field. He's gone for the game. That's the penalty. Right. So if it's a 2-minute penalty, you should have to serve the full 2 minutes. And I think that would improve scoring. And one of the scoring is the best thing about hockey, right? Like, that's where all the fun is. That's how you get people engaged, is by having, a bunch of 50, 60 goal scorers, and you have power plays that just zip the puck around. If you could try and have that for a full 2 minutes and allow teams to kind of score a couple of times, I think that would really, really benefit the game too. So that's another one that I've thought about. And here's an interesting one that was said to me. If you score a shorthanded goal, that should negate your penalty.
It should kill the penalty. Yes, I've heard that one spoken around quite a bit too. I like that rule because I've played on some college teams that, let's just say that our penalty kill may have been about 75%, but we had 10 shorthanded goals. Like, we would just send like, if our defenseman got the puck, everyone's flying the zone. Like, they're going for chances. Our coach was a nutcase.
Probably why you had a 75% penalty kill there, Tyler.
We were at a 3-on-1 every so often, like they'd hold the puck in. We're sitting ducks. I'm in net thinking to myself, well, so much for this penalty kill. And you know what? You either score or you get scored on. So it's a double-edged sword with those kind of plays. So I think that'd be an interesting rule, but you'd have to convince the traditionalists there, Mike. That's the problem.
Yeah. Tough to do in today's day and age.
Exactly. So of all the rules that we changed, there's a couple that I would have questions about, but let's get to some news. Let's address the elephant in the room that happened on Saturday. So for those that didn't know, I discussed this a little bit on the Locked On Capitals show yesterday and got a little heated. I'll admit. I'll try to keep it as calm as possible this time around, having already talked about it. The South Carolina Stingrays were playing down in Jacksonville, taking on the Jacksonville Icemen. And it was overtime. I think it was Jacksonville netminder Justin Capelmaster got ran over. I don't remember by who. Skirmish ensues, and what ends up happening is Jacob Panetta and Jordan Subban kind of get into it. Subban tried to fight Panetta. Subban's a little bit of a tough guy. All the Subbans have, they're pretty. They don't shy away from the other team that often. Both Malcolm and PK can attest to that. And then Panetta made a gesture. Now, this gesture was initially perceived as the monkey gesture. We can say it pretty much right out. And that kind of set Subban off. And I remember as well, I was listening to 32 Thoughts this morning, and Elliot Friedman said, one of the players, I forgot who it was, one of the Stingray players jumped off the bench to go after Panetta as well. Like, it was that, like, even the teammate, even Subban's teammates recognized it. And of course, the video comes out right away. It's not 100% clear exactly how the motion was made, because it seems like Panetta was kind of out of frame. This was a fan cam, obviously. The ECHL, I don't think ECHL TV was able to release the footage, but what happened immediately after,
I think they could have.
The suspension, indefinite suspension for Jacob Panetta, as well as the Icemen following I think about 36 hours later, releasing Panetta from his contract. Now, since then, Panetta has released an apology saying that he didn't mean to make any racial gestures of any kind on Twitter. And it was a video as well. You can follow, I forgot what his exact taglines, but look him up on Twitter. And he said he was trying to do like the tough guy flex, what was so for many of Caps fans know what Tom Wilson did to the New York Rangers after he literally German suplexed Artemi Panarin last year. And so as of right now, that's where we stand with this. PK Subban has come out condemning the actions. Obviously, the South Carolina Stingrays put out a statement. A lot of various organizations have as well, and a lot of people have voiced their displeasures with the actions of Jacob Panetta. And, of course, this came just less than a week after Boko Imama of the American Hockey League also had a racial gesture made towards him as well. There's been no video footage released of that, at least that I have seen there, Mike. But what was your initial reaction when you heard, at least when you heard what happened? Because the video wasn't released until PK released it.
Yeah, I mean, I was like disgusted, I guess is the first word that comes to. I mean, there's not much more people can say other than that. Like, it's so disheartening to see that type of stuff is still in the game today. Like I guess it's just so tough to talk about. But I didn't realize, though, I didn't see his apology. Funny enough, I didn't see that. Did that get posted today?
Yeah, it just got posted, I think a couple hours before we started recording this, and it's some people have retweeted it. People are knocking it for being a red statement because it is, but it does seem so. And having worked in media relations myself, I can understand why something like this you'd want it to be a prepared script, because sometimes it's very difficult to get a message out correctly without having something written down in retrospect. But people were calling it fabricated, whatever. But you could tell Jacob was very emotional because this kid, he looks no older than you and I, Mike. This is a guy that just got released from his pro contract. And the thing is, though, is that it's one of those things where he's sorry, but you only wonder if he's sorry because of the consequences that came of what happened.
Right.
Not in the, and that's why that's the problem I have with this. And he said it was the Tom Wilson flex, and it was misconstrued as a monkey gesture. And it's one of those things now. It's like, it's 2022, Mike. I think we should try to avoid any possible, whether it's emotion or whether an action or whether it's a word that may sound, be misconstrued. If something can get misconstrued, you would think, and I know everyone's saying it was the heat of the moment. I'm like, well, that's still in the back of his mind that he thinks that's an acceptable thing to do. That's something we shouldn't have in this game anyways. And of course, everyone says, it's what happened with other people. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make it right. And I don't know if did you watch the video of the fan footage of it, Mike?
I was just watching the video as you were speaking, just kind of watching it to see again if, like, because you said it was more like a tough guy thing. I wanted to rewatch it and see what it looked like to me and see if maybe that was the case. But I don't, based on like Subban's, the issue is, and I'm not sure if this came out, was there a gesture, like a sound gesture that came along with this outside of just, raising the monk? Because if there was a sound gesture that came with it, then there's no way that we could possibly, say that that's not what I was trying to do. But yeah, that said, the issue that I think, like, the fact of the matter is that, we could all still very much believe that that is what happened. And that's because there still is a problem in the game.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, you know what I mean? And there's like a hockey has always had a toxicity culture, stench attached to it. And it's not for no reason. Right. And
Right.
to me, I just think that this really needs to start from like the grassroots level. You look at what the HDA is doing, and I've had the pleasure of speaking with Matt Dumba, and he told us in the interview that we did with him that this isn't necessarily for them. Like, what they're doing, what they're trying to do, this new tape out hate campaign that they're going through with Budweiser, it's not necessarily for Jordan Subban and for Wayne Simmons and for Matt Dumba. This is for the next generation, and when you see stuff like this happening, it's so unfortunate. But he said himself, he's like, we're grown ass men. We can kind of handle it, but we need to learn from this and use these as teachable moments for people, for kids, for young kids, and really try and change things at the grassroots level, so that when somebody, gets to Panetta's age, that there's a zero tolerance for anything of the kind like this. So, this has been talked about a lot. It's got to be grassroots, and, this needs to happen. That needs to happen. At the end of the day, there's been a lot of like empty, false promises. So it seems it's probably something that's going to take a while to actually pull through. But I just hope that we do get to a point where, it's no longer, a toxic, racist culture, and it is very inclusive. I think it's, we've seen over the course of the past week, I think we're going to get to this actually a little next, is, a couple of women have started to enter the scene in the front office groups. We saw Rachel Dory get hired in Vancouver, and then they also hired a female AGM earlier today. So it's just like they're making like small steps, but we're still not there. We're still not there. There's still, some bigotry and, some a-holes in the game at the end of the day. But hopefully, if you can kind of rid it from the grassroots forward, 20 years from now, hopefully we're not seeing, these scenarios that, Jordan Subban and all the other people of color in the game today have had to go throughout their careers.
Yeah, Akeem, last thing here before we move on, Akeem Emilie put this one out today. And of course, we all know Akeem has been, dare I say, one of the most outspoken people in regards to this matter. And, he's been probably one of the best advocates for the game in the last.
It kind of it somewhat started with Akeem Aliu in a way, like the HDA and
you're right. Yeah.
What they were doing. And then I think it was a George Floyd and it was the Jacob Blake issue as well. Yep. So there was kind of three big issues that led to the formation of the HDA, I would say. But Akeem Aliu was obviously kind of a big part of forming that group.
Right. And Ali, what I was going for is that he put out a tweet today. And I'm paraphrasing here. It's a longer tweet. Akeem used all 280 characters for this one. He said, paraphrasing, he said, let's stop saying hockey is for everyone. Instead, let's say, let's make hockey for everyone. Because he knows that strides need to be made in order for that to be a true statement. We'll get to what Mike kind of hinted at with the Vancouver Canucks. Some good news that came out of on Monday. But I got to tell you guys first that BetOnline would like to wish you a happy new betting year as we continue our march to the playoffs and beyond. BetOnline remains the number one spot for all the sports wagering action and where Mike loses all of his money here in 2022. New year and a new updated desktop and mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code Locked On to get started. From football, basketball, hockey, boxing, and UFC right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Do not wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for 2022. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all of your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. Sorry, Mike, didn't mean to dirty you like that. Just had to let everyone know that. Okay, well,
my football picks haven't gone great, but I've done okay when it comes to the hockey. I'll say that I've done okay when it comes to hockey.
It's because we have the inside track. When people come up to me and say, "Hey, I'm betting on Habs and Golden Knights tonight. What should I do?" And I'm like, "Not bet on this one," because I don't know if you saw that game. The last two games for the Habs, they lose to Vegas 4-3 in overtime. Then they push the Avalanche to overtime, and boy, oh boy, Sam Montembeault and Caden Primo looking like Carey Price in those two games. My goodness.
Primo had a really good start. Actually, they've played decent since naming. What's his name? Their new general manager. Don't know why I'm blanking. Jeff something rather.
No, Kent Hughes. Kent Hughes.
Yeah, Kent Hughes.
I'm like, wow, I'm drawing a blank too.
I got sent, actually, funny enough that we bring up Kent Hughes randomly. I got sent a TikTok.
Oh boy.
which you're all about the TikTok style.
I am about the TikTok, yeah.
I got sent to TikTok, and apparently it's Kent Hughes' daughter's, I guess, big on TikTok, and apparently it was her birthday the same day that Kent Hughes was named as the general manager of the Montreal Canadiens, and she put out a kind of a funny TikTok that said, "I don't like to share," and it was like, when your dad gets named GM of the Canadiens on your birthday. It's pretty funny. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a funny little TikTok.
Happy birthday, hon. Daddy's getting a payday reduction.
Yeah, so we're not talking to you for the day.
That's kind of funny. Hey, now listen, now we got to get TikToks because now we're going to that's how you get insider trading right there. Can use like, Daddy's going out to St. Paul to go talk with Bill Guerin. What?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm telling you right now, guys. Kent Hughes' daughter apparently is the new hottest follow on TikTok.
I think that's what the TikTok. I think that's what her username is. Kent Hughes' daughter. Yeah.
Kent Hughes' daughter. I don't know her name. Sorry, I'm not looking up like Kent Hughes' daughter. What's the name? Anyways, but speaking of people of authority in the game and women, big news coming out. The Vancouver Canucks, of course, the discussion has been who is going to be the general manager of the team. Now that has to be decided. Interim GM and president of hockey ops, Jim Rutherford, has not made an announcement there, but he's made two moves, very notable moves in the last week. One that you already mentioned there, Mike, Rachel Dory, heading the video analytics team there for the Vancouver Canucks. Really ripped away from the hockey news 2 days after she signed on with them. Yeah, but really? Big news and historical news. First female assistant GM in Canucks history as Emilie Castonguay has been hired by the Canucks. Now, why does that name sound familiar? Well, she is the agent of Alexis Lafreniere, player for the New York Rangers and former number 1 overall pick. Now, I don't know what it is, Mike, but we'll get to the big move here. But what is it with agents all of a sudden deciding they want to be in management? What is that?
Yeah, no, it's Kent Hughes, same thing, right? Like Kent Hughes and now Emilie Castonguay, both, former player agents turned into front office members. And, first of all, like good for her. Congratulations, being the first female in the Canucks organization, or first woman assistant general manager of the Vancouver Canucks organization. So, that's just awesome. And apparently, I have a quote here from what she said today in her when she was speaking to media. She said, "My sister tragically died 10 years ago. And during the last conversation we had, she told me that one day I was going to manage the Vancouver Canucks. So when the Canucks called, it was pretty emotional for me. I felt like the universe was trying to bring me here." Like, I literally am getting chills right now.
That's
That it's like, talk about destiny, and the fact that she finally got this opportunity and is now going to be, I think that she's going to end up getting kind of be like their capologist in a way, and that's going to be her main mojo, which makes sense coming from a player agent perspective. You probably know your way around the CBA and the cap and whatnot.
exactly.
So I'm hope and wish nothing but the best for Emilie. And yeah, you talk about just, it's kind of happening a little bit more frequently nowadays, seeing player agents become general managers and go into management itself. And Emilie's just another bit of a trailblazer to do it, being, I guess, the first woman to kind of make that career jump.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting too, because Rachel Dory, of course, her tagline has always been the first ever, or what is going to be the future first female GM. Now she has competition with Castonguay being there. And obviously, their teams have multiple assistant GMs, but something with her being in that position, she could kind of help out, with the farm team, the American League team in Abbotsford. You could really help. I mean, that's what, for those that don't know, I guess people forget, Kyle Dubas was doing that when he was AGM under Lou Lamoriello. He was pretty much the Marlies GM, so she could kind of help out with that, learn how to run a team, and you never know, one day becoming a National Hockey League GM. That would be pretty darn interesting and pretty darn sweet, dare I say, because let's be honest, Mike, despite what, the past 100 years of this sport may show, some women know this game, well better than some guys do, dare I say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely. I mean, she knows better than I do, better than you do. That's for damn sure. And I like to think we're two pretty bright guys when it comes to sport of hockey, but we don't hold a candle to Emilie, obviously. I mean, she's been able to prove herself and blaze herself into becoming a top tier general manager, or a player agent. I think she's also the agent of Marie-Philippe Poulin as well.
That's right. Yeah, because I remember that's one of her picks, I think, is her with the last Clarkson Cup with Lake Canadian. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it does not just make sense. Like, the greatest Canadian hockey player right now going.
Whoa. Wait, do we want to do this now, Mike?
Right,
do we want to have this argument now?
Can you tell me a better hockey player right now than Marie-Philippe Poulin?
Oh, right now. Okay, you're right. Right now.
No, I'm not comparing her to Haley Wickenheiser. Is that what you thought?
Thank you. About to say, don't you dare get into Wixie's conversation here.
No, current player. I mean, like, Poulin may be able to get into that conversation. I don't know. She goes out and wins another gold medal at these Olympics. That'll be what, her fourth, maybe fifth gold medal. I mean, that's pretty.
Marie she was on the 20, because I don't think she was there for 06, right? 2010 was Marie-Philippe Poulin's first, right?
I can't remember if she was or not. But you talk, Justin Williams gets like the Mr. Game 7 call because he's scored so many game winners in like Game 7. She is like the overtime master.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's just incredible. So she's going to be up there with Haley Wickenheiser when you talk about like putting together, like some sort of Mount Rushmore of women's hockey players. Like, Marie-Philippe Poulin is up there. But back to Emilie, who is her former agent. Now will I guess Marie-Philippe Poulin's got to find a new agent or whatnot. But just congratulations to her. And I'm sure, because she's an assistant general manager, we're not going to see or hear too much about her while she goes about her business. Like, the AGM jobs, typically they work in the dark, and they run a lot of things kind of behind the scenes. They're not going to be the ones in front of cameras. I think obviously today and tomorrow, as like she gets introduced to the media, it's going to be a little bit more of a big deal, given that this is like so monumental. But then after that, she's just another, another assistant manager in the NHL, and she's gonna get to work. And I can't wait. I'm excited to see what the Canucks can do. I like what they're putting together out there in Vancouver.
So pretty much all it means is what Mike is saying here is that obviously once this wave of GMs all get signed on, Anaheim, obviously Vancouver, whatnot, the next time a bunch of GMs get fired, Emily's going to be in the conversation is what he's trying to say, folks.
Yeah, she could be. You know what I'm surprised about, actually? I'm surprised that she would, because like she's French.
Right.
I'm assuming based on her name.
Based on her clientele as well, yeah.
And her clientele, she's French from Quebec, I believe.
Right.
I'm surprised that we didn't hear her name surface with the Montreal Canadiens, given that Jeff Molson was very, very adamant about there being women involved in the GM process, and that there were some people who there was in the mix. I'm surprised her name never actually came up, though.
Well, because I don't know, they said there were 4. There were 4 candidates, I believe, for that job. I don't know if any of them got released.
There wasn't any official things like Jeff Molson didn't say we've talked to these 4, but like the insiders and all the reporters and whatnot came out with said these are 99.999% of who the 4 women who are being considered are, and I don't recall seeing Emilie's name on there. So
odd.
I just thought that was French Canadian. You would think that would
maybe Marie-Philippe Poulin was looking to get a full-time gig on hockey somewhere, maybe.
Once she finishes up her career, I don't think she's done yet. She definitely has one more goal to go out and win. That's for sure in a couple of weeks, and then perhaps maybe
that's gonna be a big turn. I'm really jacked. I love the Olympics, and I'm ready to wreck my sleep schedule over it, man. I was talking to Stephen Ellis from the Hockey News today, and the nice part is because I do my Olympic previews for MLive here in Michigan, so I write daily previews, and I put out the ice hockey schedule today. How to watch men's and women's hockey. The nice part is all the games, whether it be men's or women's. I think my wife just broke something in my hallway. The games are at 11 p.m., 1:30 a.m., 3:40 a.m., and 8:10 a.m. They're all at that specific times. There's no in betweens. Those are the 4 set times, and I'm that's perfect because I know exactly when I have to wake up and go to bed, whatever. Before we get too far into me trying to do an Olympic preview here, because we do have time and we can obviously get to that when we get to that, but we need to talk about the reason why in my office right now I have the Philadelphia Flyers and the Dallas Stars game on, because
before we get to this, okay, Tyler, since we are on the topic, were you aware that the Canadian team may have leaked today?
Yeah, so I heard that. Well, I may have heard it may have leaked because the first thing I heard was that Devin Dubnyk was not going to be on the team, and I was kind of shocked because I thought, he was going to get an honest look given the fact that he's represented Canada before World Championships and whatnot.
Devin Dubnyk. It was reported over the weekend by Darren Dreger that Dubnyk wasn't going to be it. I believe he came out and said that it was going to be. Was it Levi Pascal, and then Matt Tompkins was going to end up being the third goalie for Canada. So
why
Levi or Dubnyk wasn't somebody who I was surprised not to see on this roster. And I'm still curious if this is the roster or not. It quickly came down. It's what it seems like is this list is it's supposed to be announced tomorrow.
Right.
Or Tuesday. For those who are listening, this list was supposed to be announced on Tuesday, which I guess if you're listening to this, it is Tuesday. So today.
So they officially got it today. Exactly. So they're
right.
Also,
it looks as if it was a mishap with the scheduled tweet, and it came out 3 p.m. on Monday instead of 3 p.m. on Tuesday. And somebody saw it before they were able to delete the tweet and took a screen grab of it. And so now if this turns out to actually be the team, which it looks like it very well could be, we do have the names if we want to go over it quickly.
Yeah, sure. I haven't seen this entirely. So I'm Frank Saravelli didn't do it this time. Come on now.
Well, that's the only reason why I am a little weary about it, because I don't think I've seen many of the insiders necessarily talk about it much. So that's kind of why I'm a little bit is this really the roster? But anyways, here's the names that have been leaked. If this is in fact true, Daniel Carr, Corbin Knight, Ben Street, Jack McBain, who I think you'll like, Eric Stahl, Adam Tambellini, Eric Odell, Daniel Winnick, Adam Cracknell, Mason McTavish, Landon Ferraro, David Descharnay, Jordan Wheel, and Josh Hosang as the forward group.
Because remember, Hosang's on an AHL deal. People forget that with the Marlies.
Yes, so he is 100% eligible to go to the Olympics if he so chooses, which makes sense to me why he hasn't signed an NHL deal, because the way that he's playing in the AHL probably should have been given a look, considering, the amount of teams that have been suffering for actual NHL talents due to the, COVID throughout the year. This might be why he was reluctant to sign a deal to get a shot at the Olympics. Defensively, Brandon Gormley, Matt Robinson, Mark Barberio, Maxime Nareau, Jason Demers, Tyler Wotherspoon, Alex Grant, and then Owen Power as makes up the final guy on defense.
As if we didn't see enough University of Michigan in the World Juniors, now we're going to get to see a bunch of University of Michigan in the Olympics. I mean,
Yes, because there's also a bunch of those, the American kids too. Matty Beniers is going to be there. Well, Kent Johnson is not necessarily named to this team, but I did hear that he is going to be an alternate who will go there in case there's an injury or a COVID situation arises. I did see that could be the case.
And that's a good thing too. And I remember I made the joke because I don't know if have you heard the story what happened with Western Michigan and the University of Michigan back in December?
Probably not.
So this was during the World Junior Championships, of course. Western Michigan and Michigan were supposed to play the second game of the Great Lakes Invitational Tournament. Now it's a little bit different. It's usually like a quick, 4-team tournament. 2 teams play. Whoever wins plays in a championship game. Well, they couldn't do that this year, so Michigan and Michigan State were hosting 2 games, one against Western Michigan, one against Michigan Tech. Well, the University of Michigan announced that they were not going to be able to play their game against Western Michigan due to health protocols, due to pretty much, health and wellness issues with the team, which would have been okay if they were not still playing Michigan Tech the night before. And pretty much the consensus, and I'm not going to name names, but from myself working with Western Michigan, there were a lot of people complaining the fact that Michigan did not want to play that game because they had Kent Johnson, Mackie Samoskevich, Owen Power, Matty Beniers, Jacob Truscott. All their big guns were playing up in Edmonton and Red Deer in the World Junior Championships, and Western was going to tear them apart since the big guns weren't there. So that game was not played by health and wellness issues, even though it was a consensus from everyone around the game that said they just didn't want to get beat by a team that was better than them by a lot, because Western's actually pretty good. They're number 3 in the country right now. So it would not have gone their way. So I was going to not make the joke. I'm like, wow, if all these Michiganders are going to go, all these Michigan players are going to go play in the Olympics, are the Wolverines going to cancel February? Didn't want to tweet that out because I'm like, I know somewhere that's a long story. I don't need to go into too much more of that, but it was a little shady in December. And so it was a little interesting with all those guys gone, but no need for me to complain anymore about people and stuff. Cause my dad, a big Michigan fan he is, he'll probably scream over on his way to the house and yell at me and whatever. So that's okay. Holy cow. We are running high today here, Mike. We have a couple more things to get to today before we wrap things up here in this edition of Locked On NHL. I got the Flyers on and the Dallas Stars right now on my TV here in this studio. It's 1-0 Dallas at the time of this in the second period. Now you're thinking, Tyler, Dallas and Philly, who cares? Well, Dallas is trying to work their way back into the central conversation. It's kind of a weird division they got going over there. But the real reason why is because I want to watch the game because Keith Yandle has tied the record for the longest consecutive games played streak in the National Hockey League, tying the great former Montreal Canadian and Hartford Whaler Doug Jarvis at 964. And at the time of the time you hear this, that means the Flyers will be getting ready for their second half of a back-to-back, taking on the New Jersey Devils on Tuesday night. And knock on wood, given that this game goes okay, Keith Yandle will be playing in that game tomorrow, setting the record. And Keith Yandle, former All-Star Keith Yandle, it's an impressive streak because Cal Ripken was a Hall of Fame shortstop and third baseman and whatnot. And obviously that's why he played over 2,600 consecutive games in the major leagues. You don't play 964 and knock on wood 965 games, Mike, in the National Hockey League as a defenseman, I remind you, without having a little bit of skill and a little bit of ability to be an everyday player. And that's what we've seen from Keith Yandle for, my gosh, well over a decade now.
Well, you could argue that it's never been done. So yeah, I'd say that's quite difficult. Things that have never been done, typically very, very difficult to do. What I think is actually like kind of most wild about this is the fact that over the last year and a half, he's been able to skirt COVID and hasn't had to miss a game due to that. Like, injuries aside, he's had a clean bill of health for, years and years and years. That's amazing. You never see that. Like there's bumps and bruises. You're held out of a game or two, or you're just not feeling well. Like that happens. But then over the last year and a half, the amount of players that we've seen get hit by the COVID bug, and it's unfortunate, but it just is what it is. It just happens, and you end up having to go on for whatever it was, 10 games or 10 days in the last year, and then last month it's been switched down to 5 days. But regardless, the fact that he's avoided the COVID list over the last year and a half to me is almost as impressive as not being injured for the 8 years, prior to that, or the 12 years prior to that, to allow this streak to get so long.
And that's the crazy part too, because people remember the story. He was in Florida last year, and Joe Quenneville was talking about scratching him opening night.
Oh, we had the Rudy moment. Oh
my gosh, could you have imagined? I'm listen, and this is a thing the players realize it, because I remember Andrew Cogliano was on pace to break the record. I think he was at like 9-10 or something, and then he accidentally clipped was it Adrian Kempe with a high hit and got suspended, and that derailed his game.
Like a questionable suspension, like there was no intent, and I remember that being a bit of a questionable situation the whole time. Yeah.
That was the whole podcast I was doing. That was the third episode we did, was after that hit, and I remember that was the first time I went off on something on podcasting. 4 years later, here we are still doing it. But the fact was, Keith Yandle was literally, the Florida Panthers said, we are not going on the ice in front of our home crowd unless Keith Yandle's on the ice. And then, of course, in Rudy fashion, even though it didn't actually happen in the actual Daniel Rudiger game, he actually scores a goal in the game. The Panthers go wild, and listen, it was one of the best moments, I think, of the season. And that was for a team, of course, that made it to the playoffs and almost won the division. But the fact of the matter is that that's how much that guy means. And people know, they knew that there was something at stake here, and man, good on him, because even though and I wonder, because I heard this on the radio earlier today too, Mike, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. He went to Philadelphia, one, because, people expect that team to be a little bit better. The defense got bolstered a little bit, but there was conversations of, will he be able to play every day? If he goes to a team, will I get a chance to play every single day if I'm healthy? And I guess the Flyers were one of the only couple teams that he was getting offers from that said, yeah, we're going to do everything in our power to make sure you play. And that was, I think, I heard was a key factor in him going to Philadelphia. So good on the Flyers organization too, to stick with it. Even though this team has had multiple 10-game losing streaks this season, they know to honor this guy because of the work he's put in, like we said, over a decade, almost a decade and a half of service in the NHL.
Yeah, it's remarkable. And I think he'll also have an opportunity, I think, because he signed a league minimum deal, maybe $1 million, super, super cheap contract. So even if Philly does they should close up shop, it's pretty much over. He's somebody who could go cup chasing at this point and end up on a team that could, use a good veteran puck moving defenseman like Keith Yandle. But yeah, I don't even know what I could say. It's just amazing that the guy has legitimately played 964 consecutive NHL games as a defenseman through COVID. It's just unbelievable. And that Rudy moment where literally they had Barkov and Huberdeau and Ekblad all going in and telling Quenneville, playing unless Yandle's out with us. Like he's honestly like the most genuinely awesome person. Like he's possibly the nicest person next to Jack Campbell in the sport of hockey. Everywhere he goes, he's everyone's best friend. Everybody wants to be with him. He's just like the funny guy. He's a fun dude, and he's always just so great in the locker room. So it only made sense that they were like, we can't do this to Yandle. Like, and he was better than some of the guys out on that blue line. It didn't make any sense that he was getting scratched, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, because he was a top 4 guy just about his entire tenure there in Florida.
Yeah, and I think last year he still finished with how many points did he finish with last year? I mean, you can quickly look it up, but I'm pretty sure he still ended up having quite a good year last season as well. Did he not? Like
he ended up last year. So his all-star season, at least the first one, he put 62 points up in 18-19, 45 up in the COVID shortened 19-20 season. In 56 games played, he still put up 27 points. You have to score a goal this year, dude. He's totally scoring tomorrow, right?
That'd be quite the game if he can end up. It's totally
gonna happen. Now I know you say cup chase in there. By the way, only $900,000 of Yandle's name, and this is the last thing we'll go on before we finish things up with our last topic here on Locked On NHL here for this Tuesday edition with Mike DiStefano and Tyler Kuehl here.
Do we have
Does
time?
he go for 1,000?
Does he go for 1,000? Yeah, absolutely.
Like you got to do it. Like. Playing 1,000 games in the NHL is tough enough. How about 1,000 straight?
Well, so he's 41 games, which means there's still 41 to go. It's not going to be 42. So he still has over 40 games left in the season. If he just plays out the rest of the year, he's there.
Yeah.
He has to play the rest of the season, and he's there at 1,000.
Like you got to do that. I think it would be right if he wants to. Like I said, if he wants to, you know what? I've set the record now because.
Why would he? What's he going to do? Retire? Midway through the year, he's like, 964, done. 965, it's over. I'm quitting. I'm retiring. Adios. Philly, you suck. You're not making the playoffs. Like, I'm out of here. I've got the record. No, he's going to keep it going. He's going to try and get to 1,000. Maybe, hopefully, we could figure out a way for him to get onto a playoff team and he can try and, chase a cup, and then maybe it'll be over at the end of the year. But I think he's still playing a decent level of hockey where he can latch on and play a couple of years if he really wants to. No.
Yeah, no, I think so as well. And especially you want to bring up defensemen. Heck, you want to have younger guys in the lineup, and a guy that can bring them along will be a guy like Yandle. And the funny story is Doug Jarvis set the record, like I said, 964, beat Gary Unger's record by 42 games. And I heard this story today too, and they're talking about it. The only reason why that streak stopped, Doug Jarvis, when he was with the Whalers, got scratched. I forgot what game it was, but he got scratched later on in his career after 964, and he never played another NHL game again. Like he got sent down to the minors. It wasn't like he retired. He just got scratched and went down to the American League or the IHL, whatever. And I say to myself, wow, like imagine going up to Keith Yandle and saying, all right, Keith, we're going to scratch you. How do you not retire on the spot? Like, what more do I need to do?
Well, how old was Doug Jarvis when that happened?
Oh gosh. I don't think like
players
never got that old in the league back in the day. You either were like Gordie Howe 45 or you were like 32. It seemed like.
Yeah, I mean, Yandle's only 35, so I mean, I could still see him going for a couple of years. He's still got some legs on him.
Let's see. He played 2 games in 87, 88 with the Whalers, so that he would have been holy moly. He was at the end of the 88 season, he was 33. He was 33 years old and his career ended. And he played. That's the crazy part too. Like he played like Keith Yandle's played 1,070, now 1,074 NHL games. Doug Jarvis played 964. Like that was it. He went to the streak and that was it.
That's kind of funny.
Oh man. Peter Repeat legend, by the way, Doug Jarvis. All right. Last thing here before we let everyone go here, because I know we've been going for a minute here. And you know what? It's something we do. It's very hard when there's a lot to talk about, Mike. It's very difficult for us to keep to the script there. But something we've noticed, something I noticed kind of looking at the standings today in the Eastern Conference here, because we like to joke on before we come on the show that all the good stuff happens out west, right? I know there's nothing newsy about the East. Maybe it's because we have the Eastern bias. We see it all the time, but there's kind of some story to that and some truth to that, because you look at the standings right now, both in the Atlantic and Metropolitan Division, Mike, there is separation between the teams that are in a playoff spot right now and the teams that are not. as of right now, the two best teams in the National Hockey League are the Florida Panthers and Tampa Bay Lightning at the time of recording this, both with 61 points. They both are 8 points up on the third place Toronto Maple Leafs in the Atlantic. Boston Bruins have the second wild card spot with 50 points. Washington has the first wild card spot with 55 points. It's a close battle towards the top of the Metropolitan Division. However, between Boston and the ninth place team in the Eastern Conference, the Detroit Red Wings, there is 8 points. And then after that, the next closest team, Detroit, by the way, 42 points. The 10th place team are the Columbus Blue Jackets with 37 points.
Well,
Mike, what?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was about to say, Mike, are the Eastern Conference teams set?
Yeah, they were set at Christmas. They were set, honestly. Like, I'd be shocked if the 8 teams that are currently in it, we'll see some seeding and whatnot, but the 8 teams that are there now are going to be the same 8 teams we'll be watching come round 1 in May. Like, that's what we're going to see. Even like you talk about Boston and Detroit, like Detroit's the next best team in terms of points percentage and in terms of points being 8 back, but they also have 4 extra games played than Boston. So Boston has 4 more games to make up even more ground and really pull away from Detroit, and Toronto's in the same situation. They've got 4 extra games. They got 4 games in hand on Detroit, but they're 11 points up with a chance to pull away even more. So I really do believe that it's it. Like these 8 teams, the New York, Pittsburgh, Carolina, Florida, Tampa, Toronto, Washington, Boston, those are the 8 teams that we will see come round 1 of the playoffs, barring some type of catastrophic injury to like a starting goaltender. Like if
you stop there right now, because we need a bodyguards for Jack Campbell. Like literally,
like Jack Campbell. Like if Jack Campbell goes down, like it gets dicey. If Freddie Anderson goes down in Carolina, it might get dicey. Oh, maybe not. Carolina might be a bad example. The Rangers, if Shesterkin goes down, it could be dicey. Tristan Jarry, who's just been an absolute rock for Pittsburgh this season. Jarry goes down for, let's say, 6 to 8 weeks. Now, all of a sudden, it gets a little bit more, tighter, I would think. But granted, unless we get a significant injury to like a goaltender or, multiple injuries start to pile up here within the Eastern Conference, I think these are the same 8 teams that we'll be watching come May.
Now, I will say this. I'm not trying to plant too much into this, especially since the fact that they're going to have a hellish schedule for the next few months. Sitting at 500 right now are the New York Islanders. They've won 7 of their last 10 games, Mike. They have played only 34 games. There is not a team in the National Hockey League that has played at or less games than the Islanders. Now, we saw the game, of course, on Saturday, losing 3-1 to the Leafs, but they've looked just maybe a little more composed. Is it possible? Like I said, their schedule is going to suck for the next few months, especially now with all those games being added into February. It's going to be very hard for them, but thankfully they have a decent goaltending setup, on paper. Is it possible?
I still think they dug themselves way too deep of a hole. I mean, their win percentage is the same win percentage of Detroit. So you got to think about it. Like when we talk about Boston being, having a chance to pull away, that still is the case. I know that the Islanders have more games in hand with only playing 34 games, but they also have a heck of a lot of points, right? They're 16 points back of Boston right now. And in 4 games. So even if New York won all 4 of the games that they have in hand, that only brings them to 8 points, like cuts that in half. They're still 8 points back of a wild card spot. So, that's if they win all of those games too. So I don't know if that's necessarily going to be an easy task, but I guess if I had to say, is there one team, if I had to make a bet that does make it into the playoffs and is currently on the outside looking in, the New York Islanders probably would be at the top of my list of betting odds favorites to work themselves into the playoffs. Though unlikely, that's maybe the one team that might be able to do it.
Hey, if the Canucks can almost do it with all the COVID problems they had last year, remember they had to literally just win like 7 of the last 8, and they would have, like, the Canadians were losing their way out of the playoffs, and the Canucks just had to win a few games. unfortunately, the Canucks just couldn't figure it out either. So it helped the Canadians. And the Canadians then went to the Stanley Cup Finals, and then, then that off season that happened for them. But we don't need to go into that whole saga all over again. But something though that is interesting, the conversation around the trophies, the individual awards, because we like to look on those, and sometimes they're a bit of discussion. I don't need to go into my whole Adam Fox is not a Norris Trophy winner thing all over again, but it brings up good conversation here. I'm sorry, I thought Adam Fox did not deserve it last year. I went on it for about an hour on another show once with a guy, Cody Jansen and I we were pretty Kuehl Makar heavy guys last season. Now I think my Norris pick is a little bit different this year. But what are some individual trophies, Mike, that you're looking at coming into, at least we're at this point right now, that you think, wow, this could be a pretty interesting battle for this award? Which one comes to your mind, or which couple, I guess?
Well, I think you just said it right there. The Norris, I think, is going to be a really fun trophy to kind of track the rest of the way. I would say Kuehl Makar right now is probably the leading candidate to get that, but you can't forget about like Victor Hedman. Like, that guy's just an absolute unit. But Roman Yossi's having a sneaky, like, not sneaky. I mean, this guy's always good, so I don't even know why I even bothered trying to use that terminology. But like, he's having an outrageous season, point per game. He's got 42 points in 41 games, 13 goals. So he's somebody who I kind of have an eye on having a really good year too. So, I mean, I know Adam Fox is leading the way with 45 points, but to me, I think all four of those guys, Fox, Hedman, Yossi, Makar, each one of those guys are firmly in the race right now. So that's one that I'm excited about. Then also the Vezina. I think the Vezina trophy is going to be real interesting. You've got probably another 4-horse race, if I had to say, and we're only halfway through the season. Guys could fall out, new guys could come in, but if I had to go right now and kind of go with the ballot, I think Igor Shesterkin's probably number one. UC Soros is going to be in the mix along with Tristan Jarry and Jack Campbell, and I don't think you would probably not guess that at least three of those guys, maybe you would think Soros could be in the mix, but definitely Jarry and Campbell. Like, I never in a million years would have been like, yep, those guys by midway through the season, they're going to be in the race for the goaltender of the year award. That's going to happen.
Well, 3 years ago, all those guys were in the American League, right?
Yeah, legitimately.
Except for Shesterkin, he was in Russia, but the other three, yeah.
Right. So that's going to be a fun little battle. And I'd even say Andrei Vasilevsky, who always finds himself in that conversation as well, right? So there's at least 5 goalies there that are going to be battling out till the end. So that should be a really fun trophy watch as well.
Yeah, the Vezina trophy is interesting because I think Shesterkin showed, like, even when he was injured there for a little bit, that he showed he's probably the most valuable player on that Rangers team. I know Chris Kreider is now tied for the league lead in goals at the time of recording this with 29, but
no, he scored tonight. He's already scored. He's at 30.
Oh, good Lord. Did Ovechkin score yet? I haven't seen if Ovechkin has scored yet. I mean, we have a race. There's a race that I was not ready for. Alex Ovechkin versus Chris Kreider for the Rocket Richard trophy. Come on. Like, seriously, there are some people in Montreal right now are probably just pulling out their voodoo doll somewhere and just stabbing him in the leg. It's like, see how it feels, Kreider. Anyways, but no, that's going to be an interesting one. I mean, I think Leon Draisaitl, especially after that game on Saturday, getting a goal and a big one for the Oilers to get back on the winning track, beating the Flames in the Battle of Alberta on Saturday night. That could certainly reignite his little bit of scoring touch here, because at one point he was the league leader in goals over Ovechkin. But you mentioned the Norris, and something I remember I was looking up when I was previewing Caps versus Predators last month. Roman Josi has the chance to do something that no defenseman has ever done. And I don't think it's even close, because I don't know anyone's ever done this twice. Roman Josi, if he keeps up at the pace he's at now, is going to lead the Nashville Predators in scoring 3 seasons in a row. Now, I understand the conversation. One was a COVID short 1920 year, and last year, of course, was one team in one division. However, the Predators, for a season and a half there, were really not that good. And Roman Josi was still the most consistent player. Like, Bobby Orr only led the Boston Bruins in scoring once. Roman Josi might do it thrice in a row. Like, this guy is Mr. Consistency as consistency gets. And on a team where they've had a lot, like no one thought the Predators would be in a playoff spot this year.
No.
Let's be honest. I mean, you mentioned Saros, and I'll mention him here in a second, a little bit more. But listen, they had good goaltending, but their defense has been demoralized. They dumped Ryan Ellis. Philip Forsberg was on the chopping block literally up until he's got this hot streak on. There was no ifs, ands, or buts that this team was not going to be a playoff team. And then they all of a sudden catapulted and were in the division lead. Now they have been knocked down a pedestal here lately, but Roman Yossi's been one of the reasons why. Now the Vezina conversation is great as well, because like you said, there is a lot of goaltenders that we did not expect to see. Like we knew Igor Shesterkin was a good goaltender coming over from Russia. Then again, everyone in Edmonton thought Mikko Koskinen was a good goaltender coming over from Russia too. And well, there's that conversation for that time. But, he's really shown that he's the MVP, and that's going to be an interesting one for sure. Do we even want to talk about the Hart Trophy, or is it kind of just seemingly wait until we see what we're going to get later on? Because, I mentioned Shesterkin, the term most valuable player. And I understand there is the whole thing of who should be considered for a most valuable player. I know that I've always said, you know what, they should do what the CFL does, most outstanding player. Now, granted, that'd be very hard because McDavid would take it every single year, give or take, with some obvious, maybe sometimes some changes up there. But
well, here's what I would say to that. Somebody get better and be better than Connor McDavid, and maybe someone else can win the award.
Oh, yeah, that is so easy, Mike. Someone just be an all-world generational talent. I'm sorry. I love Shane Wright to death, but Shane Wright, who got granted exceptional status.
Hold on. So you're going to tell me that you want to degrade the guy and not reward him for being a generational talent just because he's so good. We can't call him the best because he's so good. We have to come up with some random award and call it most valuable player, because how dare we reward the game's best players?
Well, that's the hard part, though, because please, I'm going to get added at this so hard when I say this, but Mike, this guy's been on the Oilers since 2016 now, and you know what? He's been there every single year, and I get it. He's always up there in points and always a leading scorer and what have you, but the success hasn't really been there for him. And I know, and listen, we don't need to go in why the Oilers are bad, because once again, trying to keep this show under 2 hours, but it's hard to say that he's the most valuable player when all he does is score and the team still doesn't win. Like, that's my thing. Like, that's why I think you got to find a guy that literally gives a team that it's almost like the Jack Adams Award. Who is the coach of the team that was given no expectations to win, but they win, right? That's usually what it is. But this year, with the MVP, it's like, all right, who is really carrying this team into the playoffs? Because McDavid wasn't able to do that. Despite as amazing and great talent that he is, he alone has not been able to drag that dumpster fire of a franchise into a deep playoff run. All right. That's the hard part with that team. That's why I think McDavid's he is the best player in the world. It's just hard for him to say the most valuable, because it's almost impossible to drag a 25 billion pound boulder up a 90-degree hill. That's my thing.
I understand the conversation. Like, McDavid's not the MVP. I get that. But what I'm saying is, if we were to make it like, this is why I don't understand. People are upset because they don't want it to be the most outstanding player because it'll go to McDavid every year. Yeah, because he's the best. Be better than him if you want to win that award. You know what I mean? Like, why take awards from him and you're going to stipulate it? Be like, no, it's got to be most valuable so that we can give it to other people. Because if it was just the best, yeah, it would go. Realistically, that's what the Lester B. Pearson Award is all about, right? The Lester B goes to the best player in the game. And that's
voted by the players,
voted by the players. I think
that's the Ted Lindsay Award now. We should probably clarify.
Sorry. Yes, Ted Lindsay Award.
Yeah, no, you and I grew up in the Pearson years. Yeah. Or Prime Minister of Canada.
Yeah, and that's the one that I think they really, really care about, the one that holds the most weight. Because remember the year where he didn't get the Hart, but he got the Ted Lindsay?
Yeah, the year Hall won it, yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, it's kind of weird. I got voted the best player in the league, but I'm not the most valuable. Like,
he missed the playoffs by 20 points there, Connor. What do you expect us to do?
Yeah, it's like 99 times out of 100. Usually it's a full sweep by whoever wins both of those awards, but whatever. Interestingly enough, though, just taking a look at Hockey Reference quickly, according to the point share statistic, which is there's just a weird formula to get it, but essentially it's like the hockey version of WAR. How many points this player is worth specifically to their team, how many points this player has garnered their team above average, I guess you could say. According to the point share statistic, it looks like UC Saros, interestingly enough, leads the NHL in point share this year. So UC Saros would be Hockey Reference's MVP.
And that's what was my two picks. I was going to be was UC Saros because of the incredible year that he's having. We mentioned for the Vezina, but also I was going to say Alex Ovechkin because
that's 1, 2, yeah.
And that's the crazy thing is because Ovi, the fact that he's been able to stay healthy this entire year is another thing too, because that Caps team has been riddled with injuries, COVID, what have you, and yet they're still in a playoff spot. Yeah, they've taken a little bit of a dip recently, but the fact that he's still one of the top goal scorers in the league at the age of 30, 35, turning 36 here is incredible. Like, that's why I think he's got to be in the Hart conversation for sure. And you mentioned Saros. Like, right now, those are my two picks. I know,
if the season were to end today, it's going to Ovechkin. I don't care what this point share statistic tells us. It's going.
I don't care what this thing I looked up says on Hockey Reference. We're going with the eye test.
I'm just saying, like WAR doesn't necessarily always equate to, the Cy Young Award winner, or it doesn't equate to getting, the MVP in baseball, right? It's just an analytic. It says, this is what this person is. And realistically, you could look and say Tristan Jarry, his 7.1 points of his team. When you look at maybe point share percentage, perhaps that is more than UC Saros is. So you can even go a little bit deeper if you really want to look into it and look based on how many points that team has and how many points that specific player got towards that team, and look at the percentage. Maybe this list would look a little bit different. But at the end of the day, these are very narrative driven trophies, and the narrative of, like you said, 35 soon to be 36-year-old Alex Ovechkin doing what he is doing is just incredible. And I would find it hard to believe that the media doesn't reward him with the Hart Trophy if he can keep this up for the rest of the season.
Knock on wood, of course, for Caps fans, because now Washington needs another championship, right? Because, having one wasn't enough, and they need to have a second big party there in D.C. and do it at a fountain of the Caesars Palace.
Why don't you bring one to Toronto instead? How about that? Huh?
Oh yeah, I want that, Mike. Because trust me, I thought you thought no. Having been at the Raptors parade, I don't think I'll ever see another parade like that. Like, even if the Leafs win, I don't think it'll be the same.
Gong show. That was a gong show.
The city hadn't won a championship for almost a quarter century, Mike. They didn't know how to handle a winner.
It was,
a major championship. No disrespect to the Argos and TFC, but that was not that.
Yeah, it took them like 4 hours to do what was supposed to be like a 30-minute bus ride.
Dude,
it took them 4 hours because they couldn't move people.
So
it was insane. Insane.
I gotta tell the story here because unfortunately Mike's gonna make it up here. This is unfortunately my last time on Locked On NHL here. Unfortunately, I got a lot of stuff coming up. No, you don't need to make a big deal about it, but I gotta get this story out there because it's a great story. I told Sean this story too, Sean Woodley, our boss, and he gets a kick out of it because of course he's the host on Locked On Raptors. Exactly. And so my wife and I, we left at 1:30 in the morning on Monday because we were already going to go to Toronto anyways. We already had a trip planned for those 3 days. It just happened to work out that the Raptors won Game 6 to win the championship, and they announced right after the game when the parade route was and when it was all going to happen. So we leave at 1:30 because we want to make sure we get a spot. We were at where they were originally supposed to start near Exhibition Place, and they started 45 minutes late anyways. Like, I don't know who didn't show up, but a bunch of the players didn't show up. I'm sure Kawhi was like, wait, I can't leave yet. No, I'm joking. That's not what he said. But we were sitting there at the front, big crowd of people. They have literally here was the parade path. It was 5 OPP squad cars, Toronto police cars. Then it was, I think, 10 cops on motorcycles, and then 2 TTC buses to try to keep people off the streets. That still didn't work. Now, this, Mike, because you work in Toronto So that we're exhibition places on Lakeshore Boulevard. My wife and I had to go to Sport Check at Maple Leaf Square to go get her a Jays shirt because she hadn't gotten one yet. We were going to the Jays game that night. I'm a Jays fan. I have a bunch, but she wanted her own. We were able to walk after the buses passed us. All the players went out. We got all the pictures. We were able to walk around down Lakeshore, down the Lakeshore, actually, not Lakeshore Drive. We walk all the way down, all the way to Maple Leaf Square on Bay Street. Go to Sport Check, sit in there for about 25 minutes looking for a shirt for her. James Duthie is on TSN saying, don't come to Nathan Phillips Square, guys. We already have 2 million people here. Don't show up. By the time we got out, the buses were finally catching up to us. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we get back to our place in our apartment at Liberty Village. We got to Liberty Village from Bay City. Now, people need maybe to look up maps here, but we literally walked because the TTCs were ruined at this point.
No, they're not going anywhere.
By the time we got back to our apartment that we were staying in, our Airbnb, the team finally showed up to Nathan Phillips Square.
And you could watch the ceremony. Very nice.
Yeah, so we got to watch. Well, first thing we turned our phones on. Everyone's freaking out because at that point, too, there was also a couple gunshots that went off. Yeah. So people. And yes, my wife, she sees me hearing the story. She passed her nurse NCLEX that same day as well. So it really helped out. It made it a big full story. But people are calling. It's like, are you alive? I'm like, yeah. What happened? Like, oh, there were gunshots at the square. I'm like, oh, good, great. Good thing we didn't go to that.
I'll tell you what, though, I have never in my life gotten to work any quicker. There was zero traffic in Toronto that day. Zero traffic because everybody was at the parade. So you could zip right down the Gardner and get onto the DVP, which is typically named the Don Valley parking lot because traffic does not move. Boom, 120 the entire way. It was fantastic.
Well, the crazy, Wixie's barking because you can't believe how bad it was. Well, first of all, aren't the TSN studios in Scarborough?
Yeah.
So it's east. You don't even have to hit the traffic, especially where you're coming from.
Are you crazy? You've never been on the DVP, clearly.
Well, okay, yes, I've been on the DVP, but I'm saying of course, you're right, because everyone's downtown, everyone's west of it. If we took the Don Valley to get in there.
Typically, it would take me with no traffic about 20 minutes to get to work, maybe 25 minutes to get to work if there's no traffic. For me to get to work with traffic on a regular day, it would take me over an hour. So it literally doubles my time due to traffic.
Man, that was a crazy day. And that's it's still, oh man. I say, Toronto had not won a major sports championship since 93. And then all of a sudden they won it. And unfortunately, they thought, it'd be some people from Toronto. Nope, Canada showed up to Toronto that day.
3 million people. It was insane. Insanity.
And I'm pretty sure there were more that were unaccounted for. Honestly, it's
you decided to end your Locked On NHL tenure telling a story about the Toronto Raptors.
Listen, we were getting on the discussion about how crazy it would be if the Leafs won a cup. And unfortunately, I say this and saying this as a Toronto sports fan, the Leafs winning the cup would be nothing compared to the Raptors winning. Because
you think that the Raptors would be bigger?
I'm saying just because the Raptors, ever since Vancouver lost their team many years ago, the Toronto Raptors, and similar to what the Blue Jays were doing.
Nope, Tyler, you're so wrong. The Leafs would be way bigger than the Raptors parade.
You think so?
Oh, 1,000%.
How many people show up, you think, because it's the Leafs winning the cup because it's their team, or it's the people that hate the Leafs that just have to see if this thing's actually real?
Well, yeah. Well, it doesn't matter. We're talking about people. But no, you think about it, this is a team that's had fans who've been heartbroken since 1967. Most people's entire lives, they haven't seen a championship. The Raptors are still a relatively new franchise that are trying to establish a fan base. The Leafs have that established fan base, not only in Toronto, but not only across the world or across Canada, but across the world. Toronto, as much as people hate when, it gets talked about, it's the mecca of the hockey universe. It just is. And if they win a Stanley Cup, buds, I won't be able to walk for 3 days because I'll just be so hungover.
I'll say this. I don't want them to win this year because you know what's going to happen. They're going to win and they're going to shut the borders out for us Americans that want to come up.
So that was the joke. That was the joke last year. They're like, oh, they're going to win a Stanley Cup the year where no fans can go in and they can't hold a parade. That was kind of the joke about the Maple Leafs last year. And
that's why they lost. See, they knew what they were doing. They didn't want to win.
Bittersweet. They didn't win. So we didn't have to have, that other problem arise. But one day a Stanley Cup will come back to Toronto and actually go to, like Scotiabank Arena or to Nathan Phillips Square, not just to go back to the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Do you think they should hold the Sky Dome if they won? Like the parade that they go into the Sky Dome? Like you could sell tickets.
Not the Sky Dome. No. I don't think it would go to the Sky Dome. I could see them maybe. I don't know. Like maybe, man, because that'll fit like 50,000 people. I was thinking maybe BMO, but yeah, potentially.
We're right. No, you could do BMO because you could put people in the stands and on the field. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, maybe BMO. But
then again, you could put people in the Sky Dome. Like you could put like way too many people. Like people would pay to see a Stanley Cup parade in Toronto. I think
they will have pockets. You'll have the goaltenders at BMO. You'll have the forwards at Scotiabank Arena and the defense down at Rogers Center, and that'll be it. That's what they'll do.
Yes, because more people are going to go see Morgan Riley and Jake Muzzin than Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. That's right, Mike.
Flip it around. Obviously, flip those guys around.
All right, we better stop it here, or else we're going to totally figure out the Toronto Maple Leafs parade. Of course, let's be honest; they've had that parade planned for 50 years now. We'll finish it up here. Be sure to check it out, guys, every single day at Locked On NHL Pods. Mike DiStefano every day covering the Leafs at Locked On Leafs at Mickey_Canuck. I'm Tyler Kuehl, the insider of the insiders at TJKU29. Saying so long and don't do it, Mike. You're gonna do it, aren't you?
I did have to do it. It says, we haven't been together for that long on the show. You've done a few shows here now, but like you said, you've got some other work, got a lot on your plate, so you're kind of taking off from the Locked On Network. But it was a pleasure working with you, Tyler, and we'll definitely stay in touch. I hope the listeners enjoyed what you were able to contribute to the Locked On NHL show. And trust me, man, we'll talk again. I'll have you back on the show for a hello and a quick update on what's going on with you, and also just get your thoughts on what's going on in the NHL. And if it's on a Tuesday, obviously the Eastern Conference.
There you go. Exactly. It just happens to work out. And listen, I'm not going to stop watching NHL. Trust me. I got that. I got the Olympics coming up here, man. I'll be watching it. It's a lot to talk about. I got to save the vocal cords because unfortunately I want to sound like a 35-year-old chain smoker.
I'm with you.
I'm with you. Mike, best of luck to you as always, man, and all your endeavors as well, man. You've been kicking tail for a lot longer than I have, and keep it up yourself. But for all of you at home watching and listening on Locked On NHL, thank you all very much. And we'll see you next time.